We all know Florida has the craziest residents, but which state has the weirdest residents? Alaska, and it's not close. Everybody I met up there seemed like something was just a tiny bit off. A friend has a sister in Alaska. Met her when she came to visit and we'd all gone to dinner and drinks. She commented on a lot of the men in the restaurant. So I asked if she was single herself since it seemed like she was looking. Her response? In Alaska, there are a lot of single men. So the odds are good. Problem is, those goods are odd. So maybe Alaska? Alaska gets the people who can't fit in anywhere else. I'd like to hear the opinion of an Alaskan here. 'Cause I didn't think us Oregonians are all that weird. But then again, my neighbor is in a feud with her neighbor about an emotional support sheep. I think we come in second place. I would say Alaska. You gotta be just a little bit special to want to live somewhere so expensive and isolated but yet beautiful. Maine is full of weird people. Not in a bad way, but they aren't like other Americans. I'd like to throw Louisiana into this discussion. The mixture of voodoo and French, African, Caribbean and American culture, combined with all of the history, make for a truly weird experience. I'm not talking about going to Mardi Gras and getting drunk in the French Quarter. I'm talking about going to different parishes and really exploring weird and wonderful people down there. I love it. Utah is a different kind of weird. Like blue-eyed, blonde-hair Stepford type weird with their own weird jargon. It's either that, or crackheads. Oregon and Alaska seem to be the real answers to this question. Middle Pennsylvania is like the Twilight Zone. Former truck driver here, and I have been in 49 states. By far Alabama wins. I am not talking about the city folk, but some of those county people are just not right. No sir, not right at all. Have you been to Vegas? People here are strange. Oregon by far. Maybe not one, but New Hampshire is a dark horse. Oregon. Lived there for 10 years. Definitely Oregon. Utah. Michigan. Specifically Upper Michigan. Oregon. FYI, the reason Florida seems so crazy is because of their sunshine laws that require open access to proceedings. So it's really easy for reporters looking for easy headlines to search arrests. In other states it's not so simple to do a search across the state. Florida may very well still have more crazies than average, though who knows. For weirdest, I'll say Oregon. If we're talking methed up weird, it's gonna be Arizona or Indiana. For odd weird, it's Utah. Definitely Alaska. It's the land of misfit toys. Oklahoma. Mississippi River villages of Illinois. Seriously, it's like the craziest bunch of trailer park boys I've ever seen. Went with a bunch of friends to a cabin once. Sitting there playing euchre, we heard a giant explosion. Nobody moved, as if it wasn't the weirdest thing. Finally we had to ask. Their reply, "Oh, that's just Squirrel, he's been working on a stump for a while now." Oklahoma. In that the western half of the state is Indian Territory. It's historically been the Indian Territory for so long. Whereas everywhere else the goal has pretty much been to get the natives out of sight, out of mind. But Oklahoma embraces it. I say Oregon, but Yakima isn't doing Washington any favors. Not the entire state, but a specific city, Portland, Oregon. Alaska. Let's just distill the top comments and say Alaska and states which begin with the letter O. I love New Mexico's weird. It's like dusty nature weirdo weirdness. Also meth at times, I suppose. But it's a cool weird state nonetheless. Alaska, where the odds are good but the goods are odd. I'm gonna say Utah for how weirdly religious the whole state seems. Idaho would have my vote. How is Utah not higher on the list? Utah. 50% of the population believes in a cult started by a megalomaniac. Said megalomaniac claimed he translated a book made of gold written by an advanced ancient Hebrew group that populated the Americas. By throwing a magic rock in a hat and putting his face in the hat, the dude conned people out of money, wives, property, and teenage girls during his tenure. Not to mention he plagiarized from multiple sources like the Freemasons, other nutty religious authors of the time period, and many others. Scrolling the comments and just glad it's not Jersey for once. Utah. WV. Idaho. No one there is normal. Same could be said for most of Utah. Utah for sure. Hands down Oregon. New Mexico. Literally gives off hills have ice type vibes. So you've never spent quality time in Utah? Utah. Minnesota. It's not duck duck goose. Here it's duck duck gray duck. One odd incident. My wife and I were taking a cross-country motorcycle trip. We stopped in a very small town in WVA for lunch. There was a gas station with dumpy restaurant as the only commercial property in town. We ate in the corner while locals came and went. When I went up to pay, instead of thanks, hope everything was good or similar, they handed me the change and said, "You make a right at the end of this road to leave town." Utah is full of a very specific type of fucking weirdo and there are a huge number of them. Heat. New Mexico is the only answer. Mississippi. It sucks and they work hard to keep it that way. Get up into Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. 100 years of steelmaking left something in the general pop. Ohio. I know probably 30-40 people from Ohio, but I'll be damned if even 5 of them are normal. Utah. All those weird people who believe in Mormonism. West Virginia. Ever see the movie Logan Lucky? Utah. Nearly 3 million people or their relatives looked at all the states and said to themselves, yeah, I want to live in Mississippi. As a California native who's lived in Texas for most of my life, I'd say those two are pretty neck and neck in terms of weirdo residents. California probably has the craziest and the weirdest. Cali is the only place I've seen multiple people shit on the sidewalk and smear it on a wall. Never seen anything like that in Florida. Hands down Vermont. That's subjective. For me, it's California. Interesting mix of people. Surprise Florida. Idaho and Utah need some consideration. Alaska. The odds are good but the goods are odd. You don't lose your girl. You just lose your turn.